The marble floor of the Grandview Hotel gleamed under crystal chandeliers, each footstep echoing like a heartbeat in the cavernous lobby. Rebecca Sterling stood behind a pillar, her hands trembling as she gripped her phone. The screen showed a calendar alert she'd found on her husband's laptop 3 days ago. Grand Suite reservation, 3 p.m. Saturday. It was 2:47 p.m. She watched Marcus emerge from the revolving doors, his charcoal suit perfectly pressed, the way he always dressed for important client meetings. Except there was no client meeting today. She'd called his office. Marcus had taken a personal day. Her stomach churned as she observed him scan the lobby with the nervous energy of someone waiting for something illicit. He checked his watch twice in 30 seconds. Then his face transformed. That smile, the one she used to think was reserved only for her, spread across his features as a woman in a crimson dress walked through the entrance. The woman was younger, maybe 30, with dark hair that cascaded over her shoulders. She moved with the confidence of someone who believed she belonged everywhere she went. When Marcus kissed her cheek, lingering just a second too long, Rebecca felt something inside her chest crack open. But she didn't move. Not yet. She had learned patience in the 3 days since finding that calendar entry. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while dying inside. 3 days of planning this moment. Marcus took the woman's hand, and they walked toward the front desk. Rebecca could hear fragments of their conversation, carried across the marble expanse. "Can't believe we finally get a whole afternoon," the woman said, her voice light with anticipation. "I told you I'd make it work, didn't I?" Marcus replied, that confident tone he used when he wanted to sound in control. Rebecca waited until they reached the desk, until Marcus placed his credit card down, their credit card, before she stepped out from behind the pillar. Her heels clicked with deliberate precision across the floor. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Marcus turned at the sound. Their eyes met. She watched the color drain from his face like water circling a drain. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The woman beside him looked confused, glancing between them, not yet understanding. "Hi, honey," Rebecca said, her voice carrying across the lobby with crystalline clarity. "Fancy meeting you here." 3 weeks earlier, Rebecca had married Marcus Sterling on a sunny October afternoon 7 years ago, surrounded by 200 guests who'd celebrated their union with champagne and tears of joy. She'd worn her grandmother's pearls. Marcus had cried during his vows. His best man had joked that Marcus was punching above his weight class when he toasted the bride. Everyone had laughed, including Rebecca. She'd met Marcus at a charity gala where she'd been volunteering as an event coordinator. He was a financial consultant with a firm downtown, charming and attentive in a way that had felt refreshing after years of disappointing dates. He remembered small details, how she took her coffee, her mother's birthday, the name of her childhood dog. He'd pursued her with romantic gestures, handwritten notes, surprise flowers delivered to her office, weekend getaways to bed and breakfasts in the countryside. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," he'd whispered on their wedding night. She believed him. Their life together had been comfortable, if not always exciting. Marcus worked long hours building his career. Rebecca had left her event planning job after they married, focusing instead on renovating their historic brownstone in the city's revitalized downtown district. She'd poured her creativity into transforming the space, attending design consultations, managing contractors, creating a home worthy of the life they were building together. They'd talked about children. "Soon," Marcus always said. "Once I make partner, we'll start trying." But partnership kept getting delayed. And Rebecca kept waiting. The first crack appeared 3 months ago, though she hadn't recognized it then. Marcus had become obsessed with his phone, checking it constantly, even at dinner. When she'd mentioned it, he'd been defensive. "Work is insane right now, Becca. You know I'm up for review." She'd accepted the explanation because she wanted to believe it. Because doubting your husband meant doubting everything you'd built together. Then came the late nights that became overnight trips. The business dinners that ran until midnight. The cologne she'd never smelled on him before. The way he'd started going to the gym 5 times a week and bought new clothes, tighter shirts, more fashionable jeans. Just trying to stay healthy, he'd said when she commented on the changes. But there was something else. Something she couldn't name, but felt in her bones. The way he'd started sleeping facing away from her. The way conversations had become transactional, grocery lists and bill payments and nothing deeper. The way he'd stopped seeing her. 2 weeks ago, she'd noticed a charge on their credit card statement. The Grandview Hotel. Dinner for two at their rooftop restaurant. She'd been at her sister's house that night, helping with her newborn nephew. When she'd asked about it, Marcus had barely looked up from his laptop. Client dinner. Big potential account. At a hotel restaurant? They're from out of town. Staying there. His tone had been irritated, as if she was being unreasonable. She'd let it go. But she'd also started paying attention. 3 days ago, she'd been looking for a file on his laptop while he was in the shower. His calendar had been open. That's when she'd seen it. The reservation for today. Saturday afternoon. The Grand Suite. No client names. No meeting notes. Just a reservation. She'd sat there, staring at the screen, feeling her world tilt on its axis. Part of her wanted to confront him immediately. The other part, the part that had been absorbing tiny wounds for months, needed proof. Needed to see it with her own eyes. So she'd said nothing. She'd smiled at breakfast. She'd kissed him goodbye when he left for his golf game that morning, the one that apparently ended at a luxury hotel. And now here she was, watching her husband check into a suite with another woman. Becca? Marcus's voice cracked on her name. What are you? Why are you? The woman in the crimson dress looked between them, confusion morphing into alarm. Marcus, who is this? Rebecca laughed, a sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm his wife. And you are? The lobby had gone quiet. The concierge at the desk had frozen mid-keystroke. A couple waiting for the elevator had stopped talking. Even the ambient music seemed to fade away. The woman's face went pale. His wife. He said he was divorced. Did he now? Rebecca's gaze swung back to Marcus. Divorced. That's interesting. Because I'm pretty sure I'd remember signing those papers. Marcus held up his hands like he was trying to calm a wild animal. Rebecca, please. Let's not do this here. We can talk about this at home. Home. The word came out sharp as broken glass. The home I've been maintaining while you've been doing what exactly? Meeting her for afternoon hotel visits. This isn't what it looks like, Marcus said, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Just give me a chance to explain. Oh, I'd love an explanation. Rebecca crossed her arms. Please. Enlighten me. What does this look like, if not what it obviously is? The woman in red spoke up, her voice shaking. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know he was married. He told me. She turned to Marcus, something breaking in her expression. You told me you'd been divorced for 2 years. You said you were ready to move forward. Interesting timeline, Rebecca said. Considering we celebrated our 7th anniversary 4 months ago. With the watch I bought you, Marcus. The one you're wearing right now. Marcus looked down at his wrist, as if he'd forgotten the watch existed. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Becca, this isn't. It's complicated. Complicated. Rebecca nodded slowly. You know what's complicated? Finding hotel charges on our credit card. The one we share. The one connected to our joint account. The account I manage because you were too busy with work to handle household finances. A hotel manager had materialized from somewhere, a thin man in a gray suit who looked profoundly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere more private. No, Rebecca said firmly. I think we're fine right here. Public seems appropriate, don't you think? Since my husband has been living a very public double life. The woman in red's eyes were welling with tears. How long? She asked Marcus. How long have you been lying to me? Marcus's jaw worked silently. The confident consultant, the smooth talker, had vanished. In his place stood a man who looked like he wanted to sink through the marble floor. 8 months, Rebecca answered for him. That's how long ago the charges started. Small things at first, lunches, coffee shops in neighborhoods you never go to. Then dinners. Then hotels. You've been tracking me? Marcus found his voice, and incredibly, it carried indignation. Rebecca's laugh was genuine this time, though bitter. I've been monitoring our finances, which is apparently more than you've been doing. Every purchase, Marcus. Every lie. The Grandview wasn't the first hotel. It was just the boldest. The woman in red took a step away from Marcus like he was toxic. 8 months? We've been together for 8 months, and you've been married the whole time? I can explain, Marcus said to her, desperation creeping into his voice. It's not like that. Our marriage has been over for years. We're just roommates, really. I was going to tell you the truth. I just needed time to… To what? Rebecca interrupted. To move more of our money into accounts I don't know about? To refinance the house in your name only? Oh yes, I found those papers in your car yesterday. To build a new life while keeping me as… What? A safety net? The wife at home while you play bachelor with her? The red dress woman, Rebecca realized she didn't even know this woman's name, was crying now. I thought you loved me. I do, Marcus said quickly. I do love you. This has nothing to do with us. This is just it's complicated with Becca and me. We have history and finances and… History, Rebecca repeated. Is that what we're calling 7 years of marriage now? History? A small crowd had gathered at the edges of a lobby. Hotel guests, staff members, people who'd stopped to watch the drama unfold like it was theater. Rebecca could feel their eyes, their attention, but she didn't care anymore. Let them watch. Let them see what Marcus Sterling really was beneath his expensive suits and charming smile. I gave you everything, Rebecca continued, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. I left my career to support yours. I built us a home. I waited for the children you kept promising we'd have soon. I believed you when you said the late nights were about work. I trusted you. Becca, please. No. She held up a hand. You don't get to please me anymore. You don't get to minimize this or spin it or charm your way out. This is it, Marcus. This moment right here. This is where everything ends. The woman in red had wrapped her arms around herself, mascara tracking down her cheeks. I need to leave, she whispered. I can't be here. She turned and walked toward the exit, her crimson dress a bright slash of color against the neutral lobby. Marcus took a step to follow her, then stopped, looking back at Rebecca with something that might have been anguish or might have been calculation. She couldn't tell anymore. Don't, Rebecca said quietly. Don't you dare follow her and pretend to be the victim. You did this. You chose this. Marcus stood frozen between the lobby's exit and Rebecca, a man caught between two lives that could no longer coexist. The concierge had abandoned all pretense of discretion and was openly staring. The hotel manager had given up trying to move them and had instead positioned himself nearby, presumably ready to call security if needed. I never meant to hurt you, Marcus said finally, his voice hollow. You never meant to get caught, Rebecca corrected. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd seen 1,000 times when he was stressed. It didn't move her now. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I am. That I messed up? I did. But our marriage hasn't been real for years, Becca. You know that. Our marriage was real to me, she said, and for the first time, her voice wavered. It was real every morning I woke up next to you. Every dinner I made that you were too busy to eat. Every night I waited up wondering if you were safe. It was real when I defended you to my family when they said you were working too much. It was real when I convinced myself that your distance was just stress, just a phase, just temporary. I didn't know how to tell you, Marcus said. I didn't know how to say that I'd changed, that what I wanted had changed. So, you just started living a double life instead? That was your solution. Rebecca shook her head. You could have talked to me. You could have been honest. You could have asked for a divorce if you were so unhappy. But you didn't do any of that because honesty would have meant consequences. It would have meant splitting assets, explaining yourself, facing what you'd become. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Rebecca's voice rose, echoing off the marble. You wanted your stable home life and your new girlfriend. You wanted the respectability of marriage and the excitement of an affair. You wanted everything without having to choose, without having to sacrifice anything. Marcus's face flushed. You're making this sound worse than it is. Really? Rebecca pulled out her phone, scrolled through screenshots she'd been compiling for days. Let's see. Here's a text from your phone. You left it unlocked last week, telling someone named Jade that you'd handle things with the wife soon. Here's a restaurant receipt from Valentine's Day. I was sick, remember? Stomach flu. You brought me soup and said you had to work late. Except you were at Moreau's, the French place downtown, spending $300 on dinner for two. She looked up. Who's Jade, by the way? Is she different from the woman in red? Or are there more? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Rebecca breathed. There are more. It's not. They weren't serious. Just what? Just distractions? Just fun. Something hardened in Rebecca's expression. How many, Marcus? How many women have you been seeing while wearing that wedding ring? Don't do this here, Marcus hissed, finally showing real emotion, anger, tinged with fear. You want to humiliate me? Fine. You've done it. Everyone here has gotten a show. Can we please go somewhere private and discuss this like adults? Like adults? Rebecca's laugh was sharp. You mean like you've been acting like an adult? Lying, cheating, stealing from our joint accounts to fund your affairs. I haven't stolen anything. That's our money. Was our money, Rebecca interrupted. Past tense. Because as of yesterday, I moved everything from our joint accounts into one in my name only. I also called a locksmith. The locks at the house will be changed by 5 p.m. today. And tomorrow morning, I'm filing for divorce. Marcus's face went from flushed to ashen. You can't do that. The house is half mine. Actually, it's not. It's in my name. My parents helped with the down payment, remember? You insisted I put only my name on the deed for tax reasons. Your advice, your idea. Looks like that backfired. This is insane. You're being irrational. Irrational. Rebecca stepped closer, her voice dropping to something cold and precise. I've been more rational in the past 72 hours than I've been in 7 years. While you were planning your little hotel rendezvous, I was meeting with lawyers. While you were texting your girlfriends, I was documenting everything, every receipt, every lie, every inconsistency. You thought I was the naive wife, too busy with fabric swatches and renovation plans to notice. But I noticed everything, Marcus. I just didn't act until I had all the evidence I needed. The hotel lobby had gone completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of the city outside seemed muted. Everyone was watching this marriage disintegrate in real time. You've been planning this, Marcus said slowly, realization dawning. Since the moment I found that calendar entry. Rebecca's voice was steady now, the trembling gone. I knew if I confronted you at home, you'd lie. You'd manipulate. You'd make me doubt what I knew to be true. You're good at that, making people doubt themselves. But here, in front of witnesses, with your girlfriend fleeing in tears, there's no spinning this. No making me question my sanity. This is the truth, Marcus. In public, where it can't be twisted or hidden. Marcus looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route or an ally. He found neither. The few people who'd been watching looked away when his eyes met theirs, embarrassed to have witnessed something so intimate. I'll fight you, he said, turning back to Rebecca. On the house, on everything. You can't just cut me out of. Actually, I can, Rebecca said calmly. My lawyer has documented evidence of your affairs, multiple affairs, which constitute grounds for fault-based divorce in this state. You've also been transferring money from our accounts to personal ones without my knowledge, which is financial misconduct. And then there's the attempted refinancing of my property, without my consent, which is fraud.
She paused.
You really should have been more careful about leaving your laptop unlocked. The fight seemed to drain out of Marcus all at once. His shoulders sagged. 7 years, he said quietly. 7 years, and you're just going to throw it all away like this? I'm not the one who threw it away, Rebecca replied. You did that every time you chose someone else over our marriage. Every lie, every hotel room, Every moment you looked me in the eye and made me feel crazy for questioning you. You destroyed this marriage piece by piece. I'm just finally acknowledging it's dead. So that's it. Marcus's voice was bitter. You get to play the victim, turn me into the villain, and everyone cheers for you? I'm not playing anything, Rebecca said. And I'm not looking for applause. I'm looking for the exit from a relationship that was killing me slowly. The fact that you still don't understand that you're more concerned with how this looks than how it feels, that just proves I'm making the right choice. She turned to the hotel manager, who'd been standing awkwardly nearby. I'm sorry for the disruption. I'll be leaving now. No apology necessary, ma'am, the manager said quietly. I hope things work out for you. Rebecca nodded, then looked back at Marcus one final time. Don't come to the house. Your things will be packed and sent to wherever you want them sent. Communicate only through lawyers from now on. And Marcus? She paused. I really did love you. I loved who I thought you were. That's the saddest part of all this, realizing that person never existed. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking across the marble with the same deliberate precision as when she'd approached. But this time, she wasn't walking toward something. She was walking away. Behind her, she heard Marcus call out one last time. Becca, wait. She didn't turn around. She pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out into the afternoon sunlight, bright and almost painful after the muted lighting of the lobby. The city stretched out before her, busy, indifferent, continuing on as it always did regardless of individual dramas. Rebecca walked to her car, parked 3 blocks away. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up with her. She sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The pain was immense, a tidal wave that threatened to drown her. 7 years. Gone. A life she'd built. Shattered. Dreams of children, of growing old together, of the partnership she believed in, all of it revealed as fiction. But underneath the pain was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. For months, she'd been living in a fog, knowing something was wrong but unable to name it, unable to trust her own perceptions. Marcus had made her doubt herself at every turn, had gaslighted her into thinking she was paranoid, demanding, unreasonable. Now she knew the truth. And the truth, however painful, was solid ground beneath her feet. 3 months later, Rebecca sat in her lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. The process had been surprisingly quick once Marcus realized she had evidence of everything. He'd agreed to most of her terms, perhaps because fighting would have exposed the full extent of his deception. The house remained hers. Their shared investments were divided equitably, though she'd been entitled to more given his misconduct. She'd taken what was fair and no more, not out of generosity, but because she wanted nothing that felt tainted by his betrayal. How are you feeling? Her lawyer, Catherine, asked as Rebecca initialed the last page. Like I can breathe again, Rebecca said honestly. It was true. The past 3 months had been difficult. There had been nights of crying, days of rage, moments of doubt where she'd wondered if she'd been too harsh, too public in her confrontation. Her mother had been scandalized by the scene at the hotel. You could have handled it with more dignity, she'd said. But her sister Diane had understood. He humiliated you for months, Diane had said fiercely. Making you doubt yourself, lying to your face. What you did was claim your dignity back. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Rebecca had started therapy, unpacking not just the marriage but the patterns that had led her there. She'd loved Marcus, yes, but she'd also ignored red flags, smoothed over inconsistencies, made herself smaller to accommodate his needs. Never again, she'd told her therapist. Never again, Dr. Morrison had repeated approvingly. Rebecca had also returned to work, taking a position at a prestigious event planning firm downtown. It felt good to use her skills again, to be valued for her creativity and organizational genius, to have an identity beyond Marcus Sterling's wife. The house felt different now, lighter, somehow, despite being emptier. She'd redecorated Marcus's study, turning it into a home office for herself. She'd painted the bedroom a soft sage green, bought new linens, reclaimed the space as hers alone. Friends had rallied around her, some she'd lost touch with during the marriage. They told her stories she'd never heard, times Marcus had been dismissive or condescending, moments they'd bitten their tongues because they hadn't wanted to interfere. The picture they painted was of a man she'd never fully seen, blinded by love and hope and the life she'd wanted them to have. "You're well rid of him," her friend Carolyn had said over wine one night. "I know it hurts now, but honey, you're going to look back and realize this was the best thing that could have happened." Rebecca wasn't sure about that yet, but she was beginning to see possibilities where before there had only been loss. As she left Catherine's office, divorce papers in her bag, Rebecca walked through the city with no particular destination in mind. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind that made everything feel new and possible. Trees were blooming, their branches heavy with pink and white blossoms. People filled the sidewalks, laughing and talking, caught up in their own stories. On impulse, Rebecca turned down a street she rarely visited and found herself in front of a small art gallery she'd never noticed before. Through the window, she could see paintings, bold, abstract pieces in vibrant colors. A sign read, "New Artists Welcome. Portfolio reviews every Wednesday." Rebecca had minored in art history in college. She'd loved painting, had dreams of being an artist before practical considerations, and Marcus's subtle discouragement had steered her toward event planning. "Too competitive," he'd said about art. "You're so good at organizing things. Stick with what you're good at." She'd listened. She'd stuck with what she was good at. She'd shelved her paints and canvases, telling herself it was the mature choice. Standing in front of that gallery window, Rebecca felt something stir inside her. Not quite hope, not quite longing, but something adjacent to both. A possibility. A what if? She pulled out her phone and made a note. Portfolio review. Wednesday at 2 p.m. Maybe she'd go. Maybe she wouldn't. But the fact that she could, that the choice was entirely hers to make, felt revolutionary. 6 months after the confrontation at the Grandview Hotel, Rebecca received a Facebook message from an unfamiliar name. Elena Rodriguez. "I don't know if you remember me," the message read. "I was at the Grandview that day. The woman in the red dress. I wanted to reach out and say thank you." Rebecca stared at the message, surprised. She remembered the woman, of course, the tears, the shock, the way she'd fled the lobby. But Rebecca had assumed she'd never hear from her again. She typed back, "I remember you. I'm sorry you were caught up in that." The response came quickly. "Don't apologize. You saved me from wasting any more time on a man who didn't deserve either of us. It hurt like hell at the time, but you did me a favor. I'm doing much better now. I hope you are too." They messaged back and forth for a while, comparing experiences. Elena had been dating Marcus for 8 months, just as Rebecca had discovered. He'd told her elaborate lies, that he was divorced, that his ex-wife had been cold and distant, that he'd been alone for years before meeting her. He was so convincing, Elena wrote. "I feel stupid for believing him." "You're not stupid," Rebecca replied. "He was a good liar. That's not a reflection on you." They exchanged numbers. Over the following weeks, they became unlikely friends, bonding over their shared experience. Elena was a graphic designer, funny and sharp-witted. She'd started seeing a therapist too, working through the betrayal. "We should write a book," Elena joked during one of their coffee dates. "How to Spot a Lying Cheater, a Survivor's Guide." Rebecca laughed. "I don't think the world needs more of our trauma." "Maybe not," Elena agreed. "But it feels good to talk about it with someone who gets it." It did feel good. For so long, Rebecca had felt isolated in her pain, as if she were the only person who'd ever been betrayed so thoroughly. Connecting with Elena reminded her that she wasn't alone, that countless people survived infidelity and emerged stronger. "Do you ever wonder what happened to him?" Elena asked one afternoon. "Marcus, I mean." "Not really," Rebecca said, and realized it was true. "I heard through mutual friends that he's dating someone new. Another woman he probably lied to about his relationship history. But it's not my problem anymore." "Good for you," Elena said. "I still check his social media sometimes. Working on breaking that habit." "You will," Rebecca assured her. One day you'll realize you haven't thought about him in weeks, and that's when you'll know you're free. 1 year after the divorce, Rebecca held her first solo art show at a small gallery downtown, the same one whose window she'd stood in front of that spring day. Her paintings were abstract explorations of emotion, pain rendered in slashing reds and blacks, hope in soft golds and blues, strength in bold geometric shapes. The centerpiece was called The Lobby, a large canvas that captured the feeling of that moment when her old life had ended and her new one began. The painting was chaotic and ordered simultaneously, fragments of marble floor and crystal chandeliers dissolving into bursts of color that might have been anguish or liberation or both. Her sister Diane stood beside her as guests filtered through the gallery, sipping wine and studying the paintings. "I'm so proud of you," Diane whispered. "Look at what you've built from all that pain." Rebecca squeezed her sister's hand. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," Diane said. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." Elena came to the show, bringing flowers and an enthusiastic group of her design friends. They bought 3 paintings between them, declaring Rebecca a genius. To new beginnings, Elena toasted, raising her wine glass. To truth, Rebecca countered. However painful. To women who refuse to be broken, Diane added. They clinked glasses, 3 women who'd survived betrayal and disappointment and emerged with something precious, themselves, intact and uncompromising. Near the end of the evening, as the gallery began to empty, an older woman approached Rebecca. She'd been studying The Lobby for nearly 20 minutes. "This painting," the woman said, her eyes still on the canvas. "It's about betrayal, isn't it? And survival." "Yes," Rebecca said. "Both. I can see it. The moment everything changes. The pain and the clarity happening simultaneously." The woman turned to Rebecca. "It's masterful. How did you capture that exact feeling?" "I lived it," Rebecca said simply. The woman nodded, understanding in her eyes. "We all do, eventually. The question is what we do afterward. Whether we let it destroy us or transform us." "Transform," Rebecca said. "Definitely transform." The woman bought The Lobby for more than Rebecca had ever imagined charging. As she wrote the check, she said, "This painting will remind me every day that survival is its own form of art." After everyone left, Rebecca stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by the visual representations of her journey. From that terrible afternoon at the Grandview Hotel to this moment, 12 months of therapy, tears, rage, healing, and ultimately, creation. She thought about Marcus, wondering if he ever thought about that day, if he understood what he'd lost, if he'd changed or simply moved on to new lives with new women. But mostly, she didn't wonder about him at all. She thought instead about the blank canvases waiting in her studio at home, about the commissions she'd already received from tonight's show, about the Wednesday morning painting class she'd started teaching at the community center, about the life she was building, piece by piece, that belonged entirely to her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Amazing show. Drinks to celebrate tomorrow?" Rebecca smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. My treat." As she walked out of the gallery into the cool autumn evening, Rebecca realized that the woman had been right. Survival was an art form, but so was joy and hope and the radical act of building something new from ruins. She'd stood in that hotel lobby a year ago and watched her marriage die. It had been one of the worst moments of her life, but it had also been one of the most honest. The moment she'd stopped accepting lies and demanded truth, even if that truth was painful. The moment she'd chosen herself. And every good thing that followed, the art, the friendships, the slow rebuilding of trust in her own perceptions, had grown from that single moment of courage. Rebecca walked through the city streets toward her car, past couples holding hands and families laughing over dinner, past the busy, beautiful chaos of other people's lives. She felt neither envious nor bitter. She felt present, alive, complete in herself. The brownstone she'd once shared with Marcus was her sanctuary now, filled with her art and her books and her silence, peaceful rather than lonely. She'd learned to cook for one, to make decisions without consultation, to trust her own judgment absolutely. She'd learned, in short, to be enough for herself. Tomorrow she'd wake up in her sage green bedroom and paint until noon. She'd have lunch with Elena and maybe start planning their weekend hiking trip. She'd teach her Wednesday class, guiding students through the terrifying joy of putting emotions on canvas. She'd live her life with intention and honesty, refusing to settle for anything less than what she deserved. Because the greatest revenge, she discovered, wasn't a public confrontation at the Grandview Hotel, though that had its satisfaction. The greatest revenge was this: becoming so completely herself that Marcus's betrayal became just a chapter in her story rather than its defining moment. The lobby had been her ending with him, but it had been her beginning with herself. And that, Rebecca thought as she drove home through streets gleaming with rain that had just begun to fall, was worth everything she'd lost and more.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.